Order. Please silence all cell phones and electronic devices. When speaking during the meeting, please come to the podium, state your name and address, and speak loudly and clearly. Thank you. Item number one.
Karen, are we recording this?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Item number one, approval of the agenda.
I'll move it.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Passes 3-0. Item number two, approval of the meeting minutes from October 8th, 2024.
I move approval.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Item number three, a financial report. If I could call Michelle Scaff, please.
So this is pretty much the same as it was last week, with the exception of the bills that were paid on the 8th.
I'll move to receive.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Passes 3-0.
Does everyone need copies, or?
I need to give one to Jody, yes.
We'll have one back here.
I think there's more than enough here. One
Yeah.
for Dan and one for Karen. Thanks,
And
John.
thank you for providing it. Okay. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll move on to item number four, discussion and action on PCCO 28. I'd call on Shane Albrecht from Baker Group, please.
If you remember last time we tabled this item, the wording has been corrected as per the recommendation of Jody McDougall, the Authorities Council. So just to recap, PCO 142R is a storefront credit for $10,000. PCO 143 is just an accounting process to pay for houseman's fees on top of the Suter and Thompson claim, and that's for $13,947. And the last one is for CTS charges. That's a deduct of $2,233, and that's for retesting that happened to happen because of whatever, either failure of soil or the water damage that happened out there. The net of this is $1,714. Is there any questions?
Thanks for getting that cleaned up, Shane. I would move approval.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Passes 3-0. Item number 6 on the agenda, discussion and action on final completion of the LEC. And again, I'd call on Shane Albrecht from Baker Group, please.
Don't we need to do number 5 first?
Oh, excuse me, I checked that off. Excuse me, item number 5, information and update on the LEC project. Shane Albrecht from Baker Group.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the most important update for everybody on the project is inmates are in the new jail. That's proceeding, not without work by, of course, building services and the sheriff's office as they work through things. Working with Kenny today, we've kind of put a process in place for some of the warranty things to try to make it a little more streamlined and not have as much chaos going on out there. But there is, I think it was 210 people were moved, and I think the process took about 7 hours. So that's been a good thing. Kevin with GGA has been up here, and we've been walking through stuff, just checking off some of the items on our final completion list, as well as some remaining punch list items. I wanted to share with everybody, if you just give me a second. So far, since we've started on this, there's been 81 warranty items. What that means is there's been 81 items that we've had to fix that wasn't in a punch list or wasn't on other documents. From doors adjusting to the latest one right now, the freezer out there is at 48 degrees. So with that said, that's taking a ton of time from building services, because every time a vendor comes, the process the sheriff's department has in place is Kenny has to escort, or Kenny's people, them everywhere. So if they've got 2 or 3 guys out there and Kenny has 4, he only has 1 person left to do his normal day-to-day stuff. Director Smits, can I get you to come up to the microphone, please, sir? I hope I'm not undershadowing that or anything, so maybe it'd be better if it came from your words. Is that not what's happening with all those items?
Basically, yes. Contractors coming back in to do warranty items is fairly a nightmare for everyone.
Yeah, I was just wanting to make sure everybody is aware of that. That's not an easy task for your people and not something that you're hopefully going to have to deal with for an extended period of time, right?
Right. We've dealt with it so far. I would say if it goes on past a month, we won't be able to deal with it. Because basically what we're doing right now is just letting other services go. And we can't do that for a sustained amount of time.
Right. Thank you. Working with Kenny, Todd is actually going to go up and Kenny's going to get the sheriff's office to approve Todd to be able to walk some of these people to some of the places. Because he's tried really hard and he worked really hard to get us in the building, but Caleb's out there and he might come to do 5 or 6 things. So he's bouncing all over the building. The roof, as people are going to ask me questions about, the roof was completed by last Friday. The warranty walk was Monday. There's a few deficiencies in the roof, so White Castle will have to come back and correct those deficiencies, and then we will get the warranty, okay? Why we're speaking about warranties, because
How long will that take, do you know, or?
I haven't got an update from them, so I couldn't give you that, Mark.
Okay.
I did put a call into Caleb to try to figure out if he could tell me when they're coming back. They just found out yesterday they had some deficiencies, so I would have guessed them to take a couple days, but they've been pretty Johnny on the spot of getting there to get the stuff corrected. There was 54 items that they found on the roof from what Winkler did that they had to correct too. Those were all noted as we walked around. We did walk that. Warranty stuff. Commissioner Moore asked about that last time. Sent him an email with the list. Kevin, can I get you to come up, please? I will tell everybody I got the O&M manuals and all the warranty stuff delivered to me from Hausman on Monday. We had it for maybe 10 minutes, and I rejected it. I rejected it because it wasn't complete, so that's why I asked you to come up.
Yeah, so they've been submitting the operation and maintenance manuals for all the equipment and so forth, as well as the warranties out there. Part of our job is to review these things, make sure that they're in compliance with what was specified, make sure the warranties are for the right length, start at the right time, and so forth. And so we're trying to get through these. We're getting a bunch of them thrown at us here at the end of the project. Hausman's submitting them to us for final review. We found about a third to a quarter of those are not meeting the requirements for the warranties, so we're rejecting those, requesting those be resubmitted with the correct warranties, correct start dates, and so forth. So we're working through those, trying to get those diligently processed to make sure that you guys are protected long-term for the warranties on this stuff. And Kenny's got all of his O&M manuals that he needs to operate this facility. So we're doing our due diligence to make sure that happens and sorting through there, but there is just an enormous amount that we're getting here late in the ballgame. We typically would see these earlier in the process, but we're getting them and we're trying to process them just as quick as we can. So,
I think the number was 62 when we were looking at that on Monday.
correct.
So
Outstanding.
there was 62 that had been submitted but have been returned. Now, in the O&M manuals I did get, I got a digital copy of the warranties and all the stuff. I did keep the digital copy in case Kenny needed to reference anything, but we tried looking up a couple things. I'm gonna pick the generator, Kenny, right? We tried looking that up. It didn't have any of the right information at all in it, so it wasn't very useful to Kenny. We looked up the certifications on the elevators, and elevator 6 was missing, which is the only one that you don't have a placard in right now, right? So I think that's kind of our update. A lot of the stuff is done. We'll talk about final completion in the next agenda topic. So I just want to go, is there any questions on where we are right now?
So on these manuals and warranties from Hausman, and I know we've been complaining about this for 60 days, this just stuff isn't
Right.
coming, and you said it's kind of came in at the 11th hour.
Yeah.
What do we anticipate as far as getting it back and actually getting the stuff from them that's correct?
So like I said, we're turning these around just as quick as we can, and even the ones that we had rejected or asked them to revise and resubmit, they've been turned around in a fairly short amount of time too.
Okay.
So like I said, we're getting there, they're pushing, we're pushing, so we should hopefully be getting close to the end of that.
All right, good, thank you.
They offered a solution. They offered to leave the 5 volumes of the O&M manuals, and when the things got approved and stuff, we could take the wrong ones out and put the right ones in. And we rejected them because we felt that was something they should do, so we don't end up with half the information or something missing, because we've accepted it and somebody forgot to take the old one out.
All right, that's fair.
So I have a question for Kenny. So you said the next 30 days you could handle that, building services can handle that. Are you asking for more building services help? And that'd be the Board of Supervisors' decision to make.
Not currently.
You can handle it though for what you're doing now.
We're having a difficult time handling it right now, but I believe that's a short-term and not a long-term problem. I don't know yet long-term. I know short-term we're struggling, but we're only struggling because of the contract work that's trying to get completed and finished up on items that don't work properly. And so that's where our struggle is. It's tying up all my maintenance people. Our sheriff's department protocol is anytime a vendor is in the facility, a maintenance person has to be with that vendor. So that means I have 4 maintenance guys tied up with contractors, and they're just standing there. That's the protocol. That's what we deal with day in and day out, every day. The problem is the magnitude of vendors that we have in currently, that's causing the problem. If I don't see that changing, I believe it's going to taper down, but if I don't see that tapered down within a month, then I'll be coming and saying, hey, it's time we have to do something. And what that is I wouldn't probably suggest a permanent position. I may suggest hiring someone to assist with the sheriff's office approval. So,
Is part of it scheduling when first of all, I don't know if that's in the range, a reasonable range to have 80, 100 items, warranty items at the end of a project. So I don't know if that's too many or if that's under the norm, but if that's the norm.
no, that's a good question. Some of it is scheduling, some of it isn't. For instance, the freezer that Shane brought up a little earlier, we are going to have some things that have to be addressed right now, such as a freezer not working, or in the detention area, a women's pod that they can't get the temperature up on and they're receiving complaints and getting grievances on. Those are items that we have to address immediately. So that requires a contractor call immediately to figure out what the problem is and get someone working on it. Those are things you just can't schedule. You have to respond to.
Are they contacting you directly then?
For the most part, yes, because they have to gain the access that they need.
All right, thank you.
I think you raised a good question, and this could be either for Kevin or for Shane, but as far as warranty items that you've seen on this project, obviously it's a big project, but is it reasonable with the size of the project? Is it unreasonable? Is it less? What's your thoughts?
Right. So in my expert opinion, yeah, I'd say this is fairly reasonable. There's always a lot when you first occupy a building. Every building's a little bit different, but a building this complex, there's a lot of parts and pieces that are moving on this. You know, all this stuff we've walked through multiple times to make sure it's operational. Same thing with the subcontractors, whether it's Thompson, it's Suter, it's Poly Jail, just to make sure this stuff is minimized as much as we can. But sometimes until you get into a building and start using some of these things, you don't realize, hey, this door doesn't quite latch right, or this freezer's been up for several months, and all of a sudden, you know, we get into this building and 2 days later, 3 days later, you know, now we got an issue with the compressor or whatever the case may be. So in my experience, yeah, this is fairly common, and there's always a slug of them up front when you first occupy the building. But I think to Kenny's point too, I think this should taper down and make this a lot easier on these guys, because it is stressing everybody out. Just there's a lot to do in a lot of different places and a lot of bases to cover, but I hope it does taper down, and we should see it taper down a little bit. Shane, I don't know if you wanted to add any more.
Yeah, I agree. One of the other things as we've come into the building, Kenny saw people starting to move in, and it's great that we have people there. But ASAP also needed the counters removed and changed around and stuff. So not only did he have these things going on, he all of a sudden had somebody wanting to remodel this space, right?
Yes.
So that also was an urgent thing that had to be done before people got there.
Sure.
Moving copiers, I mean, your day-to-day stuff is kind of ramped up a little bit too, right?
But I suppose, and you're right, I mean, having guys out there training or people walking through is totally different than actually having 200 and some odd inmates there and staff there full-time where they're operating doors, you know, 10 times more a day than they used to, or, you know, prior to being occupied. So I totally get that. And then I guess Kenny, I guess it's probably, it's a good thing and a bad thing. It's a bad thing that you guys are busy, but it's, I guess, also probably a good thing that they're actually dedicating people there to fix these issues, and that I would be more concerned if there was a very slow response to getting some of this stuff fixed. So, but you're right, we're just gonna have to hope that this continues and it tapers off and frees up your guys. So, all right, thanks, Kevin.
So we're at a 68% completion on the 81 items, including items that are brought up today. So I mean, it's not perfect, but it's trending pretty decent, that it's a pretty quick response time to most of the items.
That's good.
Any other questions or comments on item 5? Item number 6, we'll now go to discussion and action on final completion of the LEC. And again, I'll call on Shane Albrecht from Baker Group.
Yeah, so today was the day, is October 15th. This is the 60 days from substantial completion till now. Kevin, would you mind coming up to the thing? And Jody, I'm also gonna call on you, okay? So we've spent the last couple of days walking around, checking on things. Kevin has a detailed list of all that stuff is. I can tell you things off the top of my head that didn't meet the muster, okay? Seeding, they have been out there to reseed, but per the specifications, there should have been watering and fertilizer or herbicide or whatever you want to put on this stuff. None of that's happened, so the grass hasn't come up. So we can't say that it's working because it hasn't germinated. Their answer was it's dormant, and I'll tell you, walk around looking at all these people's nice green lawns, most people's grass isn't quite dormant yet. It's starting to get there with the freezes we have at night. We talked about the roof, but we can't remove that from final completion until I have a warranty in hand. With those few deficiencies, whatever they are, Mark, corrected. We didn't talk about this before, but we will now. Seismic bracing. We did get a report. We didn't really get a report. We got a letter. The attached report was not included. So those have been rejected.
Right.
And it will be sent back to Hausman to be as rejected because we don't have the report. So I can't answer the next question you have is what areas are deficient or where that is, because it's just a bunch of words that say, hey, this is good. Here's an attached report that we didn't get, okay? So that's still on the list. Went around to verify today that some of the breakers that were marked as spares had now been labeled. I did see all permanent labels, but I did, on the fourth panel I checked, saw a breaker that was powered up. I asked, Kenny went with me. We were unable to pull that out to make sure there was wires actually going to it, just because of all the other stuff. It'll be on Kenny's list to check, but I can't verify or not, but there's a spare that's not in the off position. There's minor things. We got some light poles that have touch-up paint that they did touch the paint up, but it wasn't acceptable. right? We got
Yeah.
a fence that, touch-up paint that
Yeah.
wasn't acceptable, so we've got some areas. Kevin, I'll kick it over to you, I probably talked to
Yeah,
you
no,
more.
that's for the most part, Shane's right. I mean, it's a lot of small things right now. They're trying to get buttoned up and just some things they hadn't done. Originally on the substantial completion, I think we had 30 some odd items on the punch list they currently hadn't completed at the time of substantial completion. I think we added another 18 on top of that we identified. So majority of that list has been taken care of, but there are still a few looming out there. As Shane had mentioned, the roof, the fence, some light poles, trying to think of some of the other couple big ones. Obviously, the seismic bracing, testing and balancing, we're still working through that as well, too. We had a
Yeah, I
meeting-
forgot that one.
Yeah, we had a meeting, end of last week. We had meetings twice last week on that between
Last
RCE.
Wednesday and Thursday.
Yeah, thank you. Between RCE and Trove, myself, as well as guys from Suter and Star Controls and Performance, the balancing guys, balancing professionals.
Balancing professionals.
Thank you. A lot of names to keep track of here. And so we're trying to sort through that. There's a few items for them to go out and verify in the field just to make sure we don't have obstructions or we've got this adjusted properly. And the same end, our engineers are looking at that, saying what needs to be adjusted to make this thing all balanced out properly. So we're still working through a few of those small items, but for what I see so far, nothing that would impact the operation of this facility. Pending anything that we don't know at this point, but everything's looking pretty good and fairly minor. And I think credit to Caleb Anderson from Hausman. He's been busting his butt out there trying to get these things taken care of and been doing a good job, best he can, and knocking these things out. And so we're making this list quite a bit smaller and hope to be at the end of it soon. So
So, the reason this was on for discussion and action was because if we were at final completion, I would have asked you to act on it. Since we're not, there's no real action that's needed, okay? Just open it up for questions.
just one quick follow-up on that. We did send a letter to Hausman Construction today identifying this list of items that still are not complete and why we would not have final acceptance of the building at this time, just so they're aware.
And Jody does have something else to add to that? Turn the mic on.
Were you looking for this?
No.
Okay, so,
Mike.
yeah, I would just reiterate everything that Kevin and Shane said. So good progress is being made, but per the contract, Hausman had 60 days or until October 15th to hit final completion, so we're not there. So a letter will go out this week notifying them of their breach of that contractual obligation and reserving and preserving our rights, our claims for damages. And from there, Hausman and GGA will continue to move forward with Hausman doing the work, Kevin looking it over, providing updated punch lists like he's done today, with the goal to get the building finally complete. But as Kevin said, as far as I'm being told, nothing's affecting operations. The inmates were moved over, so those are all positive steps. So we're finally at a good spot where inmates are in there now.
And a majority of the correction items are on the outside of the building, minus the test and balancing stuff. Sorry, Mark.
No, I was just gonna ask, so there was roughly 30 punch list items, and you said there was like another 18.
There
Where
was
are we-
roughly 50 total, yes.
Where are we at now?
I'd have to do a quick count, but I'd say we're probably down to 10 or less, just off the
Okay.
top of my head. Said some of these, like I said, painting the light poles, touch-up paint on the fence, had some roof drains that need cleaned out. I'd say we're probably somewhere in the 10 plus or minus on that, out of the 50 that was identified previously.
So the biggest ones are probably, and, you know, the roof, there's probably not a whole lot of corrective work
Yeah.
that,
And some of these a little bit broader spectrum too, with the site seating, there's some grade cleanup, some washouts and so forth that need to be done. So that's two items right there that's really one, kind of
and
addressing
and
both.
the seating thing is tough because
Yeah.
it hasn't rained and
Yeah, and that's
45
part of what,
minutes
we're gonna
just-
give more detailed descriptions on what we expect to see out there. I had this conversation with Jody earlier about this, just to give them some more information, to go back and reference the specifications, because they should be watering that out there, not just waiting on
Yeah.
it to rain. It appears they have went out and drilled the seed in this time, versus just broadcasting it out there, or hydro seeding, so,
It
there are
was
steps that
drilled,
have been
Kevin.
taking place, but they need to go a little bit further than what they're doing right now.
It was drilled.
Yeah, yeah.
where
So-
are we at on the testing and balancing? Or,
So right now, RC provided a list today just of basically to-do items for each party, for the engineering side, for for Suter, Introba, and so forth. And so, yeah, we got our list of things to go back and double check. And Suter's going to be getting out there to get that done, so we can get confirmation on any additional action he's taken out there to get that fixed. So I think we're trying to set the meeting for later this week or first part of next week, if I remember correctly, so.
Yeah, so like Intruba has 6 action items, CW Suter has 6 action items, Balancing Professionals has 10, GGA has 1, and the authority has 1. We've assigned the authorities to you, so you'll be good there, okay?
So would it be wise to try to set a final completion date that we could enforce? I mean, that we could actually just abide by and move on in a different direction?
Yeah, no, I understand your question, Dan, and so, yeah, the final completion was contractually 60 days after substantial completion, so that was the date to hit. So there will be actions necessary to be taken when that's not hit. As far as wrapping some of these things up, I think everybody's working diligently to put a hard date to that. That's something I can't give you, unfortunately. So we're trying to get some of these answers and just get guys scheduled back out there to get it complete. But some things like the seeding, you know, if it turns cold or continues to turn cold, or if it turns warm and back cold again, we may not get a good stand of grass that's up to what's required until springtime. So there might be some lingering items out there. And so I think what the next step would be also to do is to identify a cost or a value associated with those items. And I would recommend that the authority withhold that amount of payment or whatever Jody recommends. I think you can withhold up to 200% of that
Yes.
per Iowa code as leverage to get that work done. So there will be some action to be taken, more discussion to be had on that.
And with the seating, we had talked about this earlier. At times, there can be exceptions to final completion. So if we have seating that needs to get finished up in spring, we can still, we can be at final completion, have that as an exception, and then Hausman comes back and finishes that in the spring. The same would hold true for like the entrance door. So that would be an exception. And when those doors finally come in, then we'll get those, we'll get that work done. But it wouldn't hold that final completion.
And like the seismic bracing, we won't know if there's any corrective work that needs to happen until we see that final report, which we're still waiting on. So we're pressing these guys as hard as we can and said, you guys have all the leverage right now. There's a substantial amount of money left in retainage. So it should be plenty of motivation to get these things done in a timely manner. But I know we've fired many letters to these guys back and forth, trying to prompt them along. We still have to follow the contract, though, and make the right choices there, so.
So Hausman said that they attached the bracing report, and the attachment wasn't there.
Correct.
Or attach the drawings,
But
the
then-
report says,
The Steve Brando guy, the guy that wrote the report, says see attached drawings and deficiencies, but when Houseman submitted that and uploaded it, that was the last
And
page.
this was on when?
We got it a week
Week
ago
ago.
Monday.
Yeah.
So obviously they never had it if they still haven't uploaded it, because if it was just human error and they just forgot to attach it, they just go back and in 10 minutes they just attach it.
Right, and so that's part of what we're trying to get to the bottom of, because it's a very similar letter to what we received months ago after they made their first inspection. So typically, like Thompson and Suter and them, they provided the letter, they provided the equipment or the devices they used to secure this stuff, and then they provided a plan that shows where these devices are at. We're missing 2/3 of that puzzle there, so again, we're prodding Hausman to get their subs, to get that stuff provided to us so we can review it and identify if there's any deficiencies, so.
I mean, I'm glad you guys caught that, but it's just ridiculous that they would say, oh yeah, it's right here, and a week later, it's still not here.
Right.
I mean, we're not stupid.
No, we agree,
I-
100%.
Anyhow, that's interesting. So,
I even called Steve Teal to make sure I was getting the report, and he says, I had a great conversation with Prairie Fire. Clay's looked it over, it's got everything it needs, it's gonna be uploaded, if it's not already uploaded. So I said, perfect. I gave Mark Nelson an update. Hey,
yeah, you did.
it's sounding good, gotta wait to see what it is when, get it reviewed.
So back to your question, Dan, as soon as we can give you guys something definitive, we'll absolutely give that to you, but there's still a lot of moving parts. But again, it's nothing that's affecting the operation and occupancy of that building. It's some outlying stuff. If there's some corrective stuff on the seismic bracing, I really don't anticipate it to be anything significant, so we'll keep you posted just as soon as we know.
On this week-long wait for daily calls that are made to them, because I agree with Mark that if it's an attachment, they forgot to put it on, or is there something more going on here?
I have suspicions.
But daily calls might help.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, no, I said I have suspicions, but it's purely
don't know.
speculation. I don't want to go down that path, so we're going to hope that they provide us what we need so we can get it reviewed.
so we'll just continue to wait.
We'll continue prodding. I said, yeah, it's either email, phone calls, text messages. Yeah, we've been staying after them. We're writing more letters back to them, which are worth whatever they're worth. I mean, we wrote plenty of letters thus far, but we're doing the best we can.
And Shane, I mean, you and Todd are in contact with Hausman
Daily.
on one aspect or another, so
Well,
they
even,
know we
even
need
Kenny's
the
in contact
seismic
with Hausman
bracing.
almost daily, right?
Yes, yes.
So, Dan, we are prodding them, it's just,
Yep, we're doing the best we can, and we're going to continue to prod until we get what we need.
Well, I understand, but there is something wrong, isn't there? There must be something wrong that you can't talk about in a public forum, but
Right.
if it's an attachment and
Where
we're.
is it?
Yeah, we're waiting for over a week.
Yeah.
I just wish they'd be honest with you and
Agreed.
straightforward and just say,
Agreed.
here's the deal.
Yep, we agree 100%.
Well, my comments, I guess, the farmer and me, I think on the grass seeding, I think that that's something we just kick to next spring. I mean, we're late enough in the fall that we're not gonna get stuff to grow. The ground is so parched in the upper 2, 3, 4 inches where the stuff's gonna be seeded.
Yeah.
The humidity is terrible low. I just don't know that there's enough watering that someone could do to actually make this stuff grow right now.
Well, conversely,
No.
you got Mid-America right across the street, right? So they've got water trucks out there every day watering their lawn, and they got grass growing. So it could be done, but you're right, it's getting a little bit late in the year.
It's a heavy lift. But yeah, again, obviously, we got inmates in there and we're functioning, touching up paint on a fence or a light pole isn't, as big a concern to me.
Right.
The seismic bracing thing, though, is interesting.
Right.
Why that continues to be delayed and withheld from us, and so that's probably my only concern, other than the testing balancing, is what's going on with that.
No, I agree, and I know just, I think Todd had been out there probably more than anybody when they were out there putting that seismic bracing on, walking around with them, and then we walked it after the fact a couple different times, and I feel confident a majority of it, if not all of it, is in place.
Sure.
And so we're just really waiting for that confirmation on the report. I don't think there's any huge deficiencies, we're gonna have to go tearing out ceilings and get to something like that, I don't see that.
Sure.
So again, until we have that in hand, we can't really sign off on that and say, hey, we're finally complete on this, so that's kind of where we're at.
Any other questions or comments on item number 6? Move on to item number 7, information on the next authority meeting scheduled for November 5th, 2024 at 2 PM. And again, I'd call on Shane Albrecht for that issue, please.
this is a reminder for everybody. This meeting is the 22nd meeting moved up a week. So the next scheduled board meeting, authority meeting will not be till November 5th. That is election day, that's why I wanted to put it on there. Does anybody have problems with that being at 2 o'clock on election day?
Or do you want to do 3 o'clock?
I don't. You guys all pick. That's, we originally always done 2. I don't care. This is why we have it on for discussion.
I'd rather move it to 3, just be a little closer to the board meeting, but either time works for me on the 5th.
3 o'clock works.
Let's move it to 3 o'clock.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm sorry, I can't be the one that makes that decision.
Do we need a motion?
I move to set the next meeting for November 5th, 2024 at 3 o'clock.
I'll second it.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 3-0. Item number 8, public concerns. Seeing none, we'll move to item number 9, authority board member concerns.
Nothing new.
I'm glad that these punch list items are getting worked through. I mean, you're down to 10 or 11 out of almost 50. I think that's great. Obviously, got a couple things looking us in the face, but thanks Shane and Kevin for keeping after them, and appreciate the updates. It is a big deal that we've got inmates out there, and I think the bigger part was that they were able to get that done without an incident. There was a lot of people involved with getting that done, so I think that's the best thing out of this whole deal. So, thank you.
Okay, with that, we'll move on to item number 10, closed session at 3:20 with Frederickson and Byron Law Firm under Iowa Code Chapter 21.5, 1C. We move item number 10. Roll call vote, please.
Second, sorry.
Lick,
Yes,
Moore,
Aye.
Nelson.
passes 3-0. Item number 11, we go upstairs.